Live in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Facebook. Welcome to the 5th event in our Voting Our Values Forum series. My name is Sarah Ogletree. I am the program coordinator at North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light, and I am so excited that you're here, that we're able to get started here for our 5th event in our series. We'll take a minute and let people get filtered into the Zoom call, let you kind of get situated on Facebook Live, but thank you so much for being here for this important conversation. It's really going to be, I think, a really valuable discussion about democracy and voter rights. So thanks so much for making some time on your Wednesday to be with us again. And thank you all, those of you who've been coming to these events each week so faithfully. Thank you for showing up again to another really valuable conversation. We're so grateful that you're with us. So, as I said, my name is Sarah Ogletree. I am the program coordinator at North Carolina Interfaith Power and Light, which is the creation care or climate justice program of the North Carolina Council of Churches. And it is my honor to welcome you to the 5th event in our Voting Our Values Forum series. We have been at this for over a month now, and that's just so exciting to me. So before we begin, as always, I want to thank our partners at Vote Earth for supporting this forum series. Please do check out the Vote Earth website. They're doing wonderful get out the vote work, particularly on college campuses, and we know that that's very important. Please do check out Vote Earth. And friends, today is the day that we have all been waiting for and talking about since this forum series began over a month ago, because today is the day that rather than receiving voter education information from me via the experts, you get to hear it straight from the experts. So that's really exciting. Today we have with us 3 incredible democracy champions. We have Kate Fellman of YouCanVote and Marian Lewin of League of Women Voters, who are with us right now. Gloria de los Santos of ActionNC should be joining us shortly. She may be having some technical difficulties, but we have some really wonderful speakers. Oh, Gloria, you're here. Hi, Gloria. Where are you? I'm so excited that you're here. Well, thank you, Gloria. We also have Gloria de los Santos with us of ActionNC, and it's awesome that we're all here. So thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to hear from some great speakers. It's going to be wonderful to be with these folks. And we're going to have a panel discussion with our speakers today. So unlike our forums previously where we had a discussion and then you all submitted your questions for Q&A, we're going to have a panel discussion, and we invite you to go ahead and just submit your questions as you have them in the chat box, and we will get to them as time allows. We also have some pre-recorded or pre-thought out questions that we'll be asking as well, and Susannah Tuttle is going to facilitate that conversation. So please do put your questions in the chat on Facebook Live or on Zoom as you have them. And as always, this forum, in addition to our entire Voting Our Values series, was inspired by the democracy values in the 2020 election voter guide, published by Faith and Public Life in partnership with Interfaith Power and Light. So this guide was created with faith communities in mind, and the North Carolina Council of Churches, as many of you know, is the only group distributing this guide in the state of North Carolina. So please, we want to ask that all of you attending today download the guide and encourage your community members to do the same to help us distribute this important information. All that said, let's go ahead and get started for this, this very anticipated call that we've been talking about for a long time. And I'll pass it over to you, Susannah, to provide some introductions and get us going with our panel.
Thanks, Sarah, and hello, everyone. I'm so grateful that you all are here. I know many of us are getting zoomed out, and we're still using this very safe and engaging platform, and we hope this is engaging for you today, and thanks for those of you watching on Facebook Live as well. We're going to do this in kind of hopefully like a live podcast format, so I'm so excited to hear from all of our incredible speakers, and I'm going to introduce each of them now. So first we have Kate Fellman, founder and executive director of YouCanVote. Kate launched YouCanVote in 2014 as a permanent educational campaign to mobilize volunteers and build community leadership to help voters navigate the rules and cast their vote. Their link is being dropped into the chat right now. Great resources, and the North Carolina Council of Churches is so honored to be a YouCanVote champion, and you should be too. We also have with us Gloria de los Santos, Durham Director of ActionNC. ActionNC's mission is to confront and reduce the root causes of poverty, underdevelopment, and social and economic inequality through grassroots education, training, organization, and mobilization. It is an honor to have you with us, Gloria. I'm so excited to be together. And their ActionNC's link and information is going into the chat as well. And finally, Lewin of the League of Women Voters is with us. Marian has served in several leadership positions in the League of Women Voters since becoming a member in 1997. I'm going to be a new member too. She served as the president of LWV Wake from 2014 to 2019 and is now the vice president of the board of directors for the League of Women Voters of North Carolina. Marian, thank you for being here. What an honor. So all those links are in the chat, and let's get to the questions. This is, as Sarah said, going to be a panel discussion. We want to have it a nice flow, so I'll try to coordinate that. And I think first, we know, first of all, obviously, this is a really busy season for all of you. That's actually a way understatement for the biggest election of our entire life. We want to give each of you a moment to speak to how your organizations are approaching this election cycle and what you're offering to the public by way of training and education, anything else you'd like to share. So let's start with you, Kate, and YouCanVote.
Hi, I'm equally as excited to be here with all of you, so thank you for having me. Well, this year is so much different than all of us had thought it would be. Some things are the same. We knew voters would be confused. We knew voters would need help. We knew that there was a lot sort of on the line riding on democracy in this election, but then a pandemic thrown into it has made us get really creative. And so we've stayed and are currently being very creative in how we get the word out to voters through partnerships like with the Council of Churches and many other nonprofits, high schools, school districts, you name it, college campuses, nonprofits, big and small, businesses, to sign them up to be voting rights champions. And this is really designed to be an each one, teach one tool. If you are interacting with voters or the public in any way in terms of yourself or your organization, we need you spreading fact-based voting information and giving voters those resources that they need to be prepared to vote this year. With so much misinformation and disinformation around, us all being on that same simple, clear messaging is just absolutely critical. So we've moved all of our trainings online. We have 2 voter empowerment trainings a week that we recommend everyone attends a voter empowerment training. Our theme is empower yourself so you can empower others. There's lots of questions about early voting and how to vote by mail. And so we answer all of these questions and give you the tools at your fingertips on our well-resourced website so that you can refer back to and use what we have to offer. We're also doing phone banks, registering voters over the phone, educating voters over the phone, helping them prepare to cast their ballot successfully this year. And to have someone, that knows what they're talking about, reach out to them and provide that local North Carolina-based information, not just generic, a text, from a national organization that might not know the specifics of what voters are facing in North Carolina with changing ID laws, with changing everything. You just have to really think before you speak to a North Carolina voter so you don't add to the confusion and you're being a helper. So we've got everything you need online, and we are welcoming more and more champions every day. So helping spread the word to get these materials like our handy dandy fridge card in takeout bags, you name it. They can go anywhere. We want these in the hands of every voter, and we want every voter to verify their voter registration and address between now and October 9th so that they don't have any surprises if they show up to vote on election day and aren't registered where they think they are. I can't tell you how many voters I've talked to in the past right after early voting ends and that say, oh, I'm registered in Charlotte, but I'm here in Durham and I can't get back there on Tuesday. What do I do? You have to go where you're registered on election day. So we need everybody to sort of think earlier, plan earlier, and with all of our work together, we can make it happen here in North Carolina.
I really appreciate that, Kate. And come on, people, right? Like we have to be educated and empower ourselves. I love that, empower ourselves so we can empower others. And that person-to-person relationship is so critical. I've learned so much with NCIPL being part of a national organization. I had not realized all of the differences between voting in North Carolina or even going to one of those big database systems and then trying to put in your thing, and then it gets us right to the DMV and all of that. And so it's really been through your education, through YouCanVote, that I've understood what it means to vote as a North Carolinian, and I really appreciate that. I'm going to turn to Gloria, and that person-to-person community-based organizing. Can you talk a little bit about how ActionNC is getting out the vote this season?
Oh, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So we're doing so many different things around educating people getting out to vote. We use two words, especially these are the two words that I use whenever I'm talking to someone about the importance of getting out to vote. The two words is empowerment and knowledge. If I can empower you to get out here and march, I need to empower you with knowledge of why you're voting and the importance of why it's important to get out and vote. The unique way that we actually empower people getting out to vote is to educate people on the issues that's pertaining to them. We do a lot of speaking engagement. We do a lot of one-on-one conversations. I personally get down and dirty with some of my conversations because I want to know, what is your issue? What is your problem? My problem might not be the same as yours. And I always say real problems are totally different than people that live in the city. So what we do is have that one-on-one contact, that face-to-face conversations, and we really take the issues that everybody's talking about and make it more of a home reality type thing. So like Kate said, we do a lot of phone banking and we do a lot of getting out to vote, but we also instill that one-on-one conversation. And once you do that conversation, that upfront conversation with the mask on, regardless of COVID, you find out that there are a lot of people that are really hurting out there, and there are a lot of things that are going on that people just don't understand where their vote matters. One of the most important things that I have done recently was talk about the history of voting, especially in the Black community itself, and voting by mail. A lot of people are very confused about voting by mail and absentee ballots, and they're very concerned if their vote is going to matter or if it's going to count. So we educate those individuals on there, and we educate people to be patient. Not only that, being patient is part of basically what our democracy is. We're patient enough to we need for these votes to actually count. And we stress the importance of why it counts. These counts are very important. Not only that, we really focus on a lot of history. We use historical events and how it's pertaining to what is actually going on. We make sure we talk to a lot of millennials. We get on their level and make sure we just sit down and talk with them about what is the real problem, what things that you want to change. And if these are some of the things that you want to change, here's how you can do it. Not just telling them to get out and vote, but we use legislation and this is what you need to do and this is how things is going to be passed. But these things cannot be changed unless you get out and vote. And this is why your vote counts. So we do so many different type of mechanisms. I like to play with a lot of stuff. Like I said, I like to get up personal with a lot of people. And I just listen to what they have to say. And we just have that one-on-one conversation and talk. For the local churches in the area, I get them involved in what we're doing because the churches is the root of everything, you might as well say, especially for the Black community. And if I can get them involved in what we're doing, and also talk with their membership, especially about healthcare, education, a few other things, how to vote exactly, because you find out that a lot of people in that congregation has never cast a vote because they don't know how, or they just never thought about having it or having an ID. So we do a lot of that. And like I said, I'm just a people person. I talk too much half of the time, but I get them out. That's what I do.
I love that. I love that. And I do this all the time, the children's game of here is the church, here is the steeple, open the door. Here are the people. Let's get to the people. And we can go on and on and on and develop every campaign under the sun. But if we're not talking to the people as people, and I really appreciate you highlighting that issues that people are dealing with, especially during COVID. I want to come back to that because I'm going to pivot over to Marian so that we can learn a little bit about the League of Women Voters. And Marian, you know, as I said to you before we started today, you know, your organization is one of those like institutions that I feel like I've known about my whole life. And it's only been through this year that I've personally and professionally have dove into to getting the vote out, and now I'm just super fired up and want to know what to do today and what to do for the rest of my life. So what can you share with us about the League of Women Voters? And I know you don't have the answers for my whole life, but
I was going to say in 25 words or less. Yeah, we've been around for a really long time, and our mission really hasn't changed very much. We were founded 100 years ago to help people who are new to voting, that they are educated about the process and about the issues. And that mission has not changed in 100 years. We're still focused on the same core principles of defending democracy and empowering voters. And we've been fighting in the court system and through advocacy on these issues for a very long time. A lot of the voter suppression issues that you hear about are not new. They've been around for a long time, but we need to overcome them legally and by participation. And so what we're doing this year is focusing primarily on voter confidence, that voters are hearing a lot of messaging out there about voting that is not correct. And the more you have incorrect information, the more you distrust the system. And if you distrust the system, you are less likely to want to engage. So a lot of our focus has been on accurate information. And, and we have thousands of members throughout the state. And our role as a state league is to activate all those local members, because in their communities, they're the thought leaders. They're the people that reach out in their communities, and they're the people that, just like in your churches, they are, when they speak and when they give information, people listen to them. And so we've been really working hard on getting them the kind of information that they need, and them giving us the information that we need. For example, we have vote411.org, which is a statewide voter guide. We've contacted hundreds and I think almost 1,000 candidates to get their information into the voter guide, so that people who live in Henderson County, North Carolina, or live in Dare County, North Carolina, that they can find out what's on their ballot. And that means finding out information about all levels of candidates, not only the top levels that we hear about on TV and in the newspaper all the time. So that's one resource that we have that we're trying to share widely. It's an online voter guide, because printing and distributing things these days is difficult, as you found. And then secondly, we've started videos so that people who are not really wanting to navigate a website can listen to a short little presentation on how to make a voting plan, why it's important to have a voting plan. And then the last one we just put out, which is how to vote your absentee ballot, how to return it, not what to vote, but how to return your absentee ballot. We go through the container envelope and how you need to fill it out and why it's important that you follow all the steps. And then we're putting out one next week that's going to be what happens to your ballot when it's returned to the Board of Elections. How does it get processed and how does it get counted? So we're really focusing on the mechanics of voting so that right now, so that people can have the highest level of confidence in their participation in the voting process, and that they can trust that the results are meaningful.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, trust right now. That's a word that we're all holding and praying that we can get through, both to ourselves and to each other, that this is a process that we must trust. And it's actually what creates our democratic system, right? And so to be able to participate that and be a part of what true democracy means. I have one question, that the first question that came in from the chat, which is an interesting question. It kind of puts us in a different frame of mind, I think, but I wanted to go there as we're live here with folks asking the questions that are on their hearts and minds. Bill Gresh asked, these organizations are doing absolutely great and necessary work. How do they feel about required mandatory voting as in some countries? It seems to work there, but would it work with Americans? I think that's an interesting question. That's a little different than I've heard. Does anybody want to jump in?
I can take a shot at that. I personally don't think Americans want to be forced to do anything, as we can clearly see. I think that it doesn't, mandating voting, it would be a mandate. If you don't have the education to back it up, then there'd be a big problem. I think what the biggest problem facing our democracy now is the civics education and getting young people not only to vote for that first election, but to vote in at least 3 elections as soon as they're eligible. That is the biggest predictor of lifelong voting. And so that's what we're working on here at YouCanVote, is to get to students in high school and explain what's on the ballot, why it matters, what these offices do, what power they hold, so that they can actually have some vested interest in voting for folks and understanding what qualifications would make somebody ready to be in this position, to align with their values and what they care about. And if we can make that connection between all of what's happening, where to go, how to do it, make it easy and seamless for folks to start the voting habit and then get involved in helping their classmates vote early and do it right away and through college, we will totally change the voter participation rates in the United States if we really invest in civic education and getting, every study shows that you just got to vote early and vote in those first 3 elections that you're eligible, and then you're on a path to civic engagement for the long term.
I completely agree, and the inspiring leadership that we're seeing in today's young people is just a lot of where I'm placing my trust. So, and Gloria, in the communities that you're speaking with directly, what are you hearing or feeling from the different generations? I know that we've been talking, and there was a great question. Thank you, Amy, from Amy Moore in the chat, of what are some examples of how volunteers can get out and have face-to-face conversations during COVID? What strategies, settings do you recommend for reaching out beyond phone banking? And I know that our elder generations often, are the ones we've been hearing a lot about, getting young people to sign up to work the polls, because it's a higher risk for elders to work the polls. What are you hearing from the younger generations in the communities that you're serving?
I'm hearing a lot. And they are really concerned because they said this country is in a crisis. Their biggest concern is what's going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years. As adults.
Oh, Gloria froze on me. I don't know if that's on everybody's end. Okay, we'll see if we can get her. Oh, now you're back. Great.
I'm sorry. It's Spectrum. I'm sorry. So the younger generations basically is their biggest concern is about the next 10 to 20 years. And they're looking at this country as being in a major crisis because the decisions that we make now is going to affect them later on in life. And that's when my kids that are teenagers, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at us and what directions we are taking. They're also watching us as so far as how we deal with healthcare, small businesses, and economic security, and the racial tension that is happening in the community. That is a big issue for them. We all know it's going to take generations for this racial tension to actually be gone away. Those generations are basically going to have to be weeded out before we can actually have a true democracy here, a true equality here. But some of the things they're really concerned about is actual economic security and healthcare, and how we go about talking to these young people. For me, I put myself at risk whenever I go out. I put on a mask, the shield, the gloves, the alcohol rub. My car smells like peroxide and alcohol, but it's clean. And I talk to these people in communities on basically you need to get out there and actually talk to people and actually get people out to vote. How do we get our young people to the polls? Like Kate said, we have to start educating them very early. Not only that, we need to start actually implementing some of these programs in our school system, like civics. They do have that, but they're not teaching our children what they should, because I still run to this very day, a lot of adults do not know who the mayor is. And that's a problem. They don't know what the city and the county actually do, or our local government does, and they don't know how this all stuff works. And that is a problem. If you don't know this information, you're not going to vote, and you're not going to be able to empower them to actually make collective change. So from an ActionNC perspective, we use history and we use present things that are as examples to encourage people to get out and vote. We also take some of our young kids. I take my kids out sometimes. They don't like it, but tough. I take my neighbors' kids with me. I take their friends with me, and I make them volunteer. They don't like it, but tough. I don't care. They still got to learn. And then their parents get involved from actually doing that as well. So we use several different type of mechanisms to encourage people to get out and vote, but I have to figure out what is their true issue is, what is their interest, and then I feed from that. And I try to feed them their knowledge that they need, or I make them do the research themselves, and then I come back. So
I like that. I like
what we're doing.
Wow, you're speaking to the heart of the matter, for sure. For the last couple of years, we've had an Advocating with Compassion campaign that we've been working on with the Council of Churches and Interfaith Power and Light. We do an annual advocacy day at the North Carolina General Assembly. And it's interesting because, you know, when we first launched the campaign a couple of years ago, the next year we had the same people come out, and the next year we had the same people come out, and that was wonderful. And they were building their relationships with their elected officials. But I wanted to find out why other people weren't joining us on that day, even though they cared passionately about the issues. And it really came back to the simple question of, do you know who represents you? Who holds the power? And folks weren't able to even say what district they lived in, or, you know, the fact that we have, you know, the difference between state senators and senators in Washington, D.C. And it's just not something that we're talking about in a local way. So that really resonates with me, Gloria. And I think this question, Rachel Baker, that you asked this question, and I'm going to turn to Marian, and then I'd love to hear from all of you about ranked choice voting. What do you all think about that system, and how do you think this would drive more folks to the polls in NC or not? Marian, you want to start on that question?
Yeah, ranked choice voting is a system where we've used it a couple times in North Carolina. It's there have been a couple pilot projects in some local jurisdictions, and we did use it not that long ago, but for a Supreme Court seat where you don't vote. It's not a winner take all, or it's like winner take all or first past the post or whatever, or the kind of system where we have now, where you have a primary and a potential runoff and then a winner, that whoever, depending, that the person has to win by getting X percent, either 50% plus one, or 40% or 30%, depending on how it's defined. So ranked choice vote is you vote for your top, usually 3 choices. And so after the first, they run, it's like they do an internal running of the election with your first choice. And then if your first choice doesn't go, then they run it again with the second and the third. So it's an internal counting of it. And it's designed to encourage third-party candidates. And it's also designed to make sure that the most voters favor whoever wins. And so, we've done it in North Carolina. It's not been particularly popular for the same reason I just had you listen to me explain it. It's a little tough to explain to voters how it works. And if they don't understand how it works, they don't understand. People have, very short attention spans and don't have a lot of patience. And so they don't like it. If they don't understand it, they don't like it. But other states are experimenting with it. A lot of groups advocate for it because it can statistically be a fairer system in the long run. It takes a while for people to accept it. So I think personally that North Carolina has so many other voting issues and voting problems that access to the polls, voter suppression, that adding another layer of trying to explain to voters how ranked choice voting works, to me, in our league, it's just not a high priority to advocate for that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Marian. I mean, actually, just hearing you talk about it breaks my brain a little bit with everything that we're trying to do. Gloria and Kate, do you agree or have a different feeling about it?
I'll just say that we do have a lot of things that we need to fix, and this might not be the first priority, even though it does increase the level of democracy. And I think anything we can do to sort of make our democracy more democratic with the small d is really imperative. What my biggest concern is the 3 different ways that you can vote in municipal elections in North Carolina. And like, for example, Wake County, Raleigh and Cary have one election day and a different primary day. And then the rest of the municipalities have another election day for their municipal elections. You almost need a PhD to explain to somebody how to vote in Wake County if they're a municipal election voter. And so it also makes statewide municipal election in those off election cycles that are voting for these important local offices, like it's almost impossible to do a statewide strategy because it's so localized. So I think what we should take up first, or the advocates would take up first, is making our municipal elections much more streamlined to increase participation, because right now the way it's designed is designed to limit participation, basically. So that is my argument for that. And also, I just want to go back to what we were talking about before, just for one quick second, is that young people and how we talk about voting. Everybody is sort of up in arms like, oh, young people don't vote, or why don't people vote? But then they themselves don't know all of these down ballot races. How we talk about voting and doing it in a respectful manner and not shaming people by saying your generation doesn't vote. Well, if you're newly eligible, how would you even have a chance to vote yet? So even educators need help coaching them on how to talk about voting. And that's what we do at YouCanVote, is teach you how to talk about it so you actually can make a difference with people and bring them in and welcome them on the voting train.
Awesome. Awesome. Gloria, any other thoughts on that? Or otherwise, we have a lot of other questions that have come in.
No, Kate just basically said everything that I was going to say. I do want to add an extra piece. I think that history piece there needs to be added with that on why the importance of it, because I don't think that piece is stressed enough. And put it in TikTok form, because my kids are TikTok. I think if we put it into something that they can understand or they're actually using right now, they'll be more inclined to actually do something. Like they basically, for example, just crashed Trump's event in, I forgot where it was, and he thought he had all these seats, and it was the teenagers that actually crashed his event. I have a daughter that actually she actually got a ticket. She wrangled up about 100 of her friends. I don't know where all these people came from, but they brought tickets and just basically they did it. So they use the internet as a powerful tool. So I think if we utilize that as so far as educating them on why it's important to vote, I think you'll see a bigger turnout.
I really appreciate that. And actually during this time of the pandemic, it's been interesting how many people we've been able to reach through examples like these forums. We've had hundreds and thousands of people look at the Facebook Live versions of the forums, and we're just halfway through. So, you know, if we were trying to gather people in person, we might get 50 people to come out, but the power of the internet is just phenomenal. And I appreciate that. I also will just remind everyone that we are a 501c3 organization. But yes, that was an amazing event, and TikTok is obviously getting a lot of heat for what happened there. Okay, so many questions. I've been taking the questions from the chat and putting them into a doc so I can get through them all. There's a lot on vote by mail, as you can imagine. So I'm going to try to compile these. Thank you, Enrique, William, and Alicia for asking these. I'm going to read them together, and then y'all can respond. So can you speak to the postage on absentee ballots? I understand the ballot only requires a first-class stamp, but what about postage meters? The fee for the first-class postage using a postage meter is 50 cents. I hate to be so paranoid, but ... That's good. And then Enrique says, my concern is that a vote by mail can be lost in the mail or even accidentally destroyed. Can we ask for a vote by mail ballot and take it physically to a voting place, either during early voting or on election day, and run it through the machine? This would maybe minimize your time at the polls. And then William McSherry asked, what can be done to counteract all the this is actually a different question. All the misinformation about candidates. We'll come back to that, William. Rosemary Rollins says, I have read that if you request and receive a mail-in ballot but decide to vote in person, you can disregard it. But my local board of elections said it's best if you bring your voted and or not voted ballot packet into the voting site to be destroyed. That is a better option. Is this info on your sites? That was a lot.
Yeah, actually, I want to address that because especially the whether you can vote if you've received an absentee ballot in the mail. There are a lot of local election officials who are a little bit control freaks, and they somehow think that they need to keep track of ballots, and they don't. And I talked to the State Board of Elections about this, and they are trying to get the word out to all the local officials that there is nothing that any local official needs or should do to follow up on an absentee ballot that has been sent in the mail. I think that that's once again, that's misinformation, disinformation. Disregard that. I don't know who you talk to, but they're wrong. And I can get you a quote from Patrick Gannon at the State Board of Elections who will tell you that. So that's number one. Number two, I don't know about postage meters versus stamps, but put a forever stamp on it, the flag stamp, or the new 19th Amendment commemorative stamp that they just issued. Put the stamp on the ballot, that's all you need. And then secondly, about delivering it in person. Yes, you can deliver it in person, but you will have to sign it in because there is a limited number of people who are allowed to hand deliver an absentee ballot. Can only be this is in law, it can only be the voter, a parent, a child, a spouse, or a sibling. That's it, and or a grandparent. That's it. So you have to not prove, but you have to say, when I'm returning this ballot, it's my ballot, or it's my husband's ballot, or it's whatever. You have to sign who you are and the relationship to the person's ballot. So that in and of itself will limit to some extent where your return options are. And so even if you go to an early voting site, you're going to have to do the same thing. So, you know, my opinion, this is a League of Women Voters opinion, if you're going to stand in line at an early voting site to return an absentee ballot, just vote early. And that way your ballot is put directly into the tabulator. It doesn't have to be reviewed. You're done. You're done if you vote early. And it is not absolutely possible to deliver a ballot on election day. If you deliver your ballot to a voting site on election day, it is automatically thrown out. So don't do it. You know, it's just not going to be counted on election day. And so put it in the mail. Put it in the mail. There's two different ways you can check on how your ballot is going to be handled. There's a new ballot tracking system that is going to be available at the State Board of Elections. That's one way. The second way is to go into voter search, and you can look in voter search, you can see what's happening to your ballot. So I want to encourage people to use the mail. You know, use the mail, give yourself plenty of time. If you give yourself, you know, if you return it now, you've got, you know, I don't know, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I don't know, to make sure that ballot gets in. So yeah, don't be too creative.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's really helpful. And I guess, you know, as we're talking with ourselves and our friends and our neighbors and our family members, you know, what are we waiting for? The ballot is already prepared, right? So there's not going to, I mean, I think that's what's interesting about shifting our perception about election day is that that's the last day that you can do anything. So why would we wait? What are we waiting for? And go ahead and get it in there. I really appreciate that. And I want to turn, unless anyone wanted to jump onto that same question, I wanted to turn to a question. I'll give a moment so that Kate and Gloria can say anything they want to say. Okay.
One thing, I do want to mention the importance of it. The one thing that well, we are 501c3. So the one thing that they have been successfully doing is putting doubt in people's heads about voting by mail, and how your ballot could be destroyed or something could have happened to it, or you will not be counted. Like you said, we could, if you want to follow track of your ballot, you need to do the ballot tracking and vote by search. We can actually do that. But what organizations could also do, if people still are not comfortable with it and they show up at the polls, is have like a packet. One of the things that we're going to be doing is called a voter safety kit. We're going to have gloves, pens, voter guides, masks, and also alcohol wipes so people can actually, and masks, so people can actually put these things on while they're standing in line, standing 6 feet away from each other, so they can cast their vote and they can feel safe about it and actually wipe themselves down. Organizations can actually create these kits for people that actually are standing in line, or they can actually mail these kits out as well. And that is one thing that we're doing, and we're partnered with so many different other organizations that are taking that extra step in doing that. We're also educating people on the importance of voting by mail and these different ways of protecting your vote and following your vote as it's being cast. So I think doing that type of mechanism and combating some of the things that are being said about that helps out a lot. But we have to make sure that this information is getting to the individuals that really need it, the ones that are casting their vote for the very first time, or the ones that are in the communities of color that basically do not know anything about this. So that is very important.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. All this misinformation. We just have a couple of minutes left, but there's 2 questions that came in, and then I want to get to a question that someone had specifically about helping with transportation and getting people to the polls. But that, we talked about the internet, the power of social media, all of the ways that we can inspire and mobilize people to get out and vote. But William McSherry asked, what can be done to counteract all the misinformation regarding candidates, especially on social media? A recent 60 Minutes detailed how Russian actors I saw that on Sunday, continue to manipulate our citizens' views, which is very problematic. And Bill Gresh asked, lawsuits are a great tool in achieving justice. For example, in civil rights, can lawsuits be used to stop disinformation as they do in libel and slander? Just briefly, because I know that's a really big topic, but because our viewers are asking about that, is there any thoughts?
I can jump in on this one. So the biggest thing that you need to make sure not to do is do not amplify misinformation. If you share it, if you get it more views, you are amplifying it and making it more successful. You should report it right away. We have a North Carolina reporting form for misinformation and disinformation right on our homepage. If you just scroll down under the Know Your Rights documents, there's report suspicious content. Please report. Take a picture, share the URL, the time you saw it, and have it be the person who saw it. So the problem with social media is we're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so was sharing this, and then we just keep sharing it because it gives us likes and clicks and feels like we're doing something, but we're actually making people freak out and keeping the disinformation out there. So report it. There's a reporting tool on Twitter, on Facebook. Report. Do not amplify.
Thank you for that. And I've been, I know a lot of my friends are just, really emotionally involved in conversations that I say to them, if they would spend the amount of time arguing with an opposing view and actually hit the streets and get out the vote, that would be much more productive. So that's a similar change of perspective, as we say. Carissa Abrams asks, and I'm going to ask this and then one more question. Some people in my local community are interested in volunteering to provide transportation to the polls for those who need it, but they've hit a lot of dead ends when searching out where to volunteer in that way. Are there any larger groups you would recommend connecting with, or would you recommend pursuing local efforts to organize this within our own community? Any additional insight you have around the need or demand for voter transportation would be helpful.
So what we're doing a 1,000 Women March, where we're going to rally up 1,000 women of color to be able to take at least 10 people to the polls. We're going to have that kit with us. So every time we pick up someone, we make sure the car is sterilized, and when they go and cast their vote, we're going to have someone there at the poll to make sure they're directed to that person so they can, it can be quick and easy, and they can get back to where they were. And then when that person leaves their car, we're going to make sure the car is actually sterilized. And that's one of the mechanisms that we're going to try for this election to see how it works. Our overall goal for each and every one of those women, well, first is to get 1,000 women of color. The second one is to make sure they take 10 people to the polls on the list in that community itself. And then actually when we finish that community, we're going to go to another one. This is going to be an ongoing transportation process and making sure that these women are safe during that entire time. And that's what we're going to be doing. This is part of our new group. Sorry, my kids thing is chiming off over here. This is something that is going through our race and gender equity program. Is called RAGE. It is for Black and brown women to come together to basically tackle the issues around gender equity, gender discrimination. And voting this year is going to be, what is this thing going on? This is why we're actually doing it. I just lost my train of thought, but we're basically getting more people out to the polls that way. Right now we have women, I think we have like over 500 women that have already registered to sign up to be a part of this. And just make it a huge celebration. It's going to be on October the 31st. And no, we're not going to be dressed up as witches. No, we're not going to be doing anything like that. But we're just going to make it a fun activity. And we're going to try to get more younger people involved in this process as well. But we're going to make sure that they're safe. And that is the biggest thing we're pushing out as well. So we're going to be partnering with local stores to make sure we have the things that we need. But just get as many women and men as possible to volunteer and make sure they have the equipment that they need to get these people to the polls. Just start advertising. And if you want to help, just let me know and I'll put you on the list. I don't care what you are. We'd be glad to have you.
I love it. I love it. And Sarah Ogletree, NCIPL program coordinator, is going to, she puts together an amazing packet that will include this recording, all the links. She's dropped the RAGE link from ActionNC into the chat. You're going to get all of this packet. And so thanks for asking that question about transportation. I would actually like to serve in that capacity as well. And so I think, yeah, let's keep that conversation going. The last question that I have that we have time for, unfortunately, this is going by really fast, I'm loving it, is that we know that we may not know who won the presidential election or elections down ballot right away. I think that's pretty clear. Can you speak to this possibility and what this might look like, and what should we be prepared for?
I can start and then hand it over to Marian in a second. I just want to add that there's always more drivers that want to drive people to the polls than riders that need rides. So, right now, to find all the people that need the rides, please do phone banking, because that's how we record people who need the ride that then we can follow up with and send the drivers. So get on the phones, because we need to find who needs a ride. And just waiting around for your phone to ring is not like being actively finding those people that need rides. So I'll get off my soapbox. So for not knowing on election day, remember, we've had lots of elections in the United States where we haven't known the results exactly the next day. And with the increase of absentee ballots, it's going to, it's going to take some time. So we need to prepare everyone just to be patient and let the lawyers, the lawyers are ready for anything that will happen. They have gamed out any scenarios. So there are legal teams that will be, on site and making sure everything is recorded and the processes are done accurately. If you want to stop getting the calls, if you want to make sure that your vote counts early and before that, wait for the election day results with those last minute absentee ballots, get your ballot in now or vote early. That is my recommendation. But I have confidence that we will, find out who the winner is, but everybody just needs to set those expectations for everyone that we have to trust the system and trust the lawyers and trust the process. So Marian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I want to agree with you completely. And I just want to reiterate this whole trust issue, that we need to believe in our democracy. We need to believe in our Constitution. We need to believe that this will work out, and that the people who want to undermine the system, they're the people who want to undermine our faith in the system. And we need to be strong, and we need to have faith. You guys are the right people to be talking to about faith. And don't spread misinformation. Don't feed into panic and hysteria. Be the calm force of every vote is going to be counted and everybody's voice is going to be heard. And that is the foundation of our democracy.
Thank you so much, Marian and Kate. Gloria, do you want to add anything before we start to wrap up?
No, not really. I want to agree. I agree with her. We need to trust that everything will go all right. We need to pray that everything will go out right. We need to hold individuals accountable, make sure that accountability piece is there before people cast their vote. And we need to question why these things are happening. Right now, there's a lot of mistrust running around there, and that is due to a part of the things that are being casted out now. They're labeling things, so many things out there for you to distrust what the system itself right now. They're doing that right now. So for people like us, it makes our job harder, but it makes our job more important because we have to make sure that the right information is getting out there, making sure that people actually turn up to the polls. I have no doubt that people's going to show up for the polls. I firmly believe that we're only going to have a one term. I'm not going to say his name, but anyway, I firmly believe we're only going to have a one term. But as people, we need to be on our toes to make sure that when they come back and say, hey, look, you know, that's not right. These individuals did not cast their vote. We need to make sure we're on our toes and make sure this information is correct and waiting for it to happen to show up and say, no, this joker, this counted. So definitely we need to trust the system. We need to question the system, and we need to hold people accountable before we vote to make sure we're voting on our issues that pertaining to us. And that's what I usually tell everybody.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you for that reminder about issues and voting on the issues that matter to us. I do want to wrap up the call with just a brief conversation about values. And I also want to thank all of you, all of the speakers, all the people who've attended this forum and other forums, and all of the great questions, folks who asked questions. Thanks for doing that and for participating and striving to be educated voters, protectors and preservers of democracy. So during this whole forum series, we have spoken a lot about values. We have talked about the values that we hold as people of faith and conscience and the values that we're holding on this election, that we're going to be voting on during this election. And I just want to talk really quickly as we prepare to wrap up about the importance of our values during and post-election. So as we've heard from our speakers just now and from news services in the past few weeks, there is confusion surrounding this election. That's clear from the questions that we've asked. And there will likely be more confusion. We can strive to educate our peers, but there is confusion surrounding this election. It is possible that we won't know the definite results of many races for days or weeks. And as we all know, tensions are very high in our country right now. That's something that we've talked about in this forum series again and again and again. Tensions are already very high in our country. We will likely see many voter intimidation tactics employed during this election cycle. And we may also see violence, though of course we pray that this is not the case. We do know that this is possible and that violence is being stoked. In light of this tension and fear around the election, fear and tension about the voting process, that those kinds of fears that we've named, fear and tension as we wait for votes to be counted, as we trust that system, and also fear and tension after the election as we prepare for transitions of power. We and NCIPL, the NC Council of Churches, want to call on people of faith and conscience, all of you here, clergy and lay leaders, to help keep peace, foster patience, and offer calm to their communities, to our communities. May we express gratitude to the poll and election workers and to the folks who carry our mail and to the lawyers as they do their part to ensure our democracy is preserved and honored. May we express patience during this likely season of waiting. May we consider together ways to still our hearts and minds and offer our bodies and hearts respite during what has been a stressful season. If we belong to a congregation, may we consider with our faith community how we might speak to the importance of compassion and nonviolence this season from our pulpits and other sacred spaces of proclamation. And may we authentically show up with these values of love in our hearts and our homes. Lastly, I want to highlight incredible work being done by our friends at Green Faith. In addition to they're doing voter outreach work, much like we are. Green Faith is also training faith leaders to be moral observers at the polls. Folks in this role will stand as witnesses at polling places to help keep peace, strive to help people feel safe, and to ensure that all are able to exercise their right to vote. And if you're interested, please sign up for a training with Green Faith. That information is being placed in the chat. And it really is important work that we stand up for justice, that we help people feel safe, and that we ensure that everyone feels heard and that they are heard. Please consider all of this as we move towards early voting beginning on October 15th and as we approach November 3rd. And thank you all for your hearts and for your care for others. Thank you you have again and again, everyone here has shown, and those of you who've attended past forums and those of you who this is your first time attending a forum, you have all shown your care for others and your care for this world. And we're so grateful to be in community with you. Thank you again for attending today. Thank you again to all of our speakers for their wonderful work, for the information that they offered. I will send out an email with resources and a recording of this call to everybody here, so you will get this information, you will have access to this, and you of course have access to their wonderful websites. Please also plan to attend next week's event, when next week's forum event, when we speak to Kalia Martin of the Climate Reality Project and James J.C. Woodley of the Jail and Prison Rehabilitation Information Outreach Program about restorative and racial justice and voting rights and voting on those values of racial justice. Please do attend that conversation. That information is also being placed in the chat. And now I would like to close us with a prayer. So again, thank you all for coming, and may we be in a spirit of prayer. May God bless you with a restless discomfort about easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may seek truth boldly and love deep within your heart. May God bless you with holy anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may tirelessly work for justice, freedom, and peace among all people. May God bless you with the gift of tears, to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, or the loss of all they cherish, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and transform their pain into joy. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you really can make a difference in this world, so that you are able with grace to do what others claim cannot be done. May we go in peace. May we go today convicted. Amen. In all God's many names we pray. Amen. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Thank you again for being a part of this conversation. Stay in touch with YouCanVote. Stay in touch with League of Women Voters. Stay in touch with ActionNC. These folks are helping us do what needs to be done to protect and preserve our democracy and to ensure that everyone's vote is counted and that everyone knows what they're doing this election cycle. So thank you all so much.